So, how did I meet and become really good friends with Serban Ghenea? A lot of people curious about that. When I first met Serban, he was working for Teddy Riley as the chief engineer down in Virginia Beach, at Future Studio, I think that's what the place was called. And every time I would fly down to Virginia Beach as the digital design rep, I'd go and see him, and we became good friends. And Serban worked his butt off at that studio. I mean, day and night. He used to drive this little Nissan Pulsar, and it was funny because he had the little tiny Nissan Pulsar, and the rest of the parking lot, was all BMWs and expensive cars like that. So they hired a new studio manager over at Teddy Riley's place, and he wasn't happy with Serban for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, Serban is just the politest, nicest person you would ever meet. But this guy just wanted to throw his weight around, and he fired Serban. And so I was working up at Medley, Planet Medley, and Serban calls me to tell me, what happened. And he says, I don't know what to do. I said, well, you're super talented. You do some great work. We got to get you up and running. And he said, well, what do I do? And I said, I'll get you a Pro Tool system at like demo pricing, which is like 50% off of retail. So I got him to buy a Pro Tools rig. He got it rack mounted, and he started doing work. And I introduced him to Jazzy Jeff, which Jeff had this company called Touch of Jazz, he had a bunch of writers, and they were writing songs for other artists. And at the time, Jeff was working with Jill Scott, which I'll tell you a story about Jill Scott. That's something different. But Serban would drive up in his Jeep Cherokee with his rack of gear, with his Pro Tools rig, and go to Jeff's facility and sit and mix stuff. And I made that connection. And then from Jeff, Serban met Will, and then he met the Boys to Men, and he had incredible talent, and you could just see it when he was doing his work, and you could hear it, and he's just a nice guy. So by his own bootstraps, he picked himself up, and he got all this work, but he was constantly driving back and forth from Virginia Beach up to Philadelphia to do the work, with his portable rack, and he was getting more and more popular. And then he got his own manager, and his manager got him even more work. And then he started having his home base out of Windmark Studios down in Virginia Beach. So I would go down there and visit him, over there. I have a picture I can post of me with him and his partner, John Haynes, at the studio. But he was using the console, just the volume control. Everything else was going through his Pro Tools rig. And he was one of the first guys using Pro Tools to do everything in a box and having, hit records. And eventually he got to a point where it made sense for him to just buy his own facility. So he bought this big house, and he made one of the rooms for him to mix in, and the other room was for John to mix in. And he had all these extra rooms for other production. And I remember when he was doing that, I had lost my job at working at Sigma. It just didn't make sense to do the 2-hour commute there and 2 hours back. Did it for 6 months, and it just was grinding me. So I was talking to him, and I said, I don't know what to do. And now Serban was pretty established, and he said, you should start your own business. I go, how am I going to start my own business? He says, you make so much money for all these other people, you can make it for yourself. And I said, well, yeah, you make sense, but I don't have the money to start anything. He said, I'll give you a blank check. He said, you write it out for whatever you want, and you help me, I want to help you. And I said, well, now you see what you just did? And he said, what? And I said, you gave me no reason to not start my own business. So I said, all right. So that's when I went full time doing Studio Logic sound. my production company, selling pro audio gear. And that was in 2005. And I never took a dime from Serban, but he gave me the encouragement to do my own thing. And I did pretty good. And, we've always kept in touch. And it's just kind of a good story about how I helped someone and then they helped me. And it wasn't reciprocated, because it had to be. It's just, he's a good guy. I'm pretty nice. And till this day, we stay in touch. But that's how the whole Serban Ghenea thing happened.